Ask Reddit by Sean with the end. What's the most unexplainable thing that has happened to you? I woke up from a nap, laughing explosively and uncontrollably. It was one of the scariest things that's ever happened to me. I couldn't catch my breath and I rolled onto the floor clutching my chest. I got so scared and ran to my dad. While still laughing, I believe he thought I was joking around, but I sat in the floor and it slowly stopped. Never happened again. Sounds almost like you had a random gelastic seizure. About 10 years ago, my brother and I owned and lived in an old 2-story duplex. While watching TV one time, I heard what sounded like something dropping on the floor and then rolling across his living room. I texted him and asked what he dropped. His reply was nothing, but I heard the sound too, and it sounded like I pushed something against the ceiling. There is only about a foot of space between our 2 living rooms. A different time, I was camping with my wife and awoke around 2:30 in the morning with the worst headache imaginable, but it quickly subsided. My brother was planning on meeting up with us later the next day, but called me in the morning to let me know he wasn't feeling well. I told him about my headache and he went silent. He told me he woke up at the same time with a massive headache, too. Neither of us are the type to play practical jokes or anything like that. It was weird. If this was the same duplex with the headache situation, it could have been carbon monoxide in the house. I was in high school at a friend's birthday party. Her parents booked us a suite at a resort hotel, the kind with a mini water park you can use free if you are staying in the hotel. It was a pool party sleepover, and we got the whole suite to ourselves, though her mom was in an adjoining room. We were staying up late watching movies. One was a horror movie about a murderer, and we were doing what teenage girls do, getting scared of nothing. Somehow we got it in our heads there was a killer outside waiting to break in and murder us. Me, having to be the brave little skeptic, decided I would prove to my friends we were safe by opening the curtains. There was a man standing right outside looking in through the window. I closed the curtains quickly, and we were all screaming. Her mom came rushing in. We told her what happened, and she checked outside, but there was no man. To this day I wonder holy shit, that's scary. Lost my ATM card, went to the bank to have it replaced. Told them what I wanted the pin to be, and they told me that the pin would be randomly assigned and mailed separately, and once I received both I could then change the pin to what I wanted it to be. The randomly assigned pin was the one that I wanted. 1234. Deleted. The night my husband's grandfather died, I was jerked from a dream into another, where grandpa was standing on a long dirt road with hot spring spas on both sides with a few people in a couple. He talked to me, telling me he loved all his family, but it was time to go. I woke up to my phone ringing. It was my husband's dad to tell us grandpa's house had burned down with him and the dog inside, and we should go meet the fire department. Dad was driving from 2 hours away. I also had a dream where I died, and I felt nothing but calm. Since that dream, my fear of death has completely gone away. I just hope when I die, it doesn't hurt. A couple weeks later I had a dream where I was driving along a road with the sun high, but at the horizon was another bright light. I was heading toward this horizon, but got the urge to pull over into a detour and do some driving around. I took this to mean my journey is far from over. I was working in a lab that had skeletal remains, many of which were Native American ancestral remains. I was used to working with skeletons, cataloging and measuring bones and whatnot, and had never experienced anything that felt supernatural. This lab was created to repatriate the Native American remains that had been excavated locally and been severely mishandled by the university for decades. I had a box that contained only a skull, and when I opened the box, I felt anger resonating from this skull. The entire time it was out of the box, it was like someone was screaming inside my head. I finished as quickly as I could and returned the skull to its place. I had nightmares for several nights and eventually told the professor in charge about it. She was a descendant of the tribe to which these remains belonged and took me very seriously. She added extra offerings to the altar in the lab and smudged the place, burned white sage, and the nightmares stopped. Never before nor after have I had such a visceral experience. Dude, thank God for her. You might still be cursed. Deleted. That's wild AF. Maybe not that weird, but definitely weirdest thing I ever saw. While hiking in the Olympic Mountains of WA, I saw two birds flying very slowly, like in super slow motion, and they perched on a branch above my head. Hard to explain how unreal and bizarre it looked, but was right in front of me. There were no updrafts of breezes, no cliff edge nearby. They were flying very slowly, in ways that should defy the laws of physics. They flew off at regular speed. Weird, were their wings flapping slowly too? Or they were just moving slowly? Many years ago during my A-level final exams, I panicked like hell in the lead up to the exam for one subject because I basically hadn't revised at all, and it was my weakest subject. I had gone through a phase during that school year of slacking off like mad, and it reflected in my grades all year, but realization hit me in the week before this exam that I had severely screwed up. I wouldn't be able to pass, let alone get a good grade. I still can't remember a single thing about the day of the exam. My friends later said I felt a bit off, more quiet than normal, but I cannot recall anything at all about that day. I got an A on that exam. I still don't know how. I still don't have any decent knowledge of that subject. I walked into that exam room, wrote for 2 hours, and got an A. Did you get your exam papers back? Did whatever you write make sense to you? There was a huge earthquake in San Francisco in the 80s. My dad was there for a conference. We felt the quake where we were and I suddenly started screaming, "Dad! Dad, look out for the chandelier!" My mom and subs were understandably freaked out. When we finally got a hold of him, he told us that he'd been in a ballroom when the quake hit and had a sudden urge to jump to the side. A chandelier fell right where he was previously standing. My family never talks about it. Freaked everyone out severely. This is the kind of story I came here for. A couple things. One of them being a dream about an event that hadn't happened yet, with people I hadn't met yet, that transpired years later. And another dream that involved me talking to my dead best friend who was alluding to things that I didn't know about my BF at the time that ended up being true. That shit still fucks me up. I've had that first thing happen so many times. I was on a payphone. A turkey walked out of the woods, bit me on the back of the knee, turned around and walked back into the woods. At first, I read it as saying I was on a payphone in Turkey and it bit me. My friends and I witnessed a bizarre canine-like creature bounding around a field while out hunting. The thing was doing what can best be described as a search pattern back and forth in the snow. We must have watched it for 45 minutes and still can't figure out what it really was. Chupacabra. I fell down the whole stairs at school and I was not injured. Just an exclamation point. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. The first patient I ever lost was a 2-year-old girl who we knew would eventually leave us due to multiple medical problems. She passed peacefully at home, where we did all our therapy sessions. She was never not attached to multiple machines that kept her alive: a trach, vent, CO2 monitor, so many wires and alarms. A week to the day after her passing, I woke from a dream where I was holding her on my lap. Her mother was next to me, and we were playing. She was completely healed, not a wire in sight. Smiling, talking, she was not able to speak in life, and being a normal 2-year-old. I knew she was okay. I already believed in heaven, but this made me believe I saw her there. You know sleep paralysis demons? Well, he was finally able to touch and hold on to one of them. Felt 100% like a human arm. Interestingly, as soon as I touched it, I wasn't scared anymore, and the shadow person started to panic instead. If you can overcome the fear, it just turns into a dream and you can do what you want. Fuck that demon dude. Many years ago, we were very broke. I had been laid off from my job and struggling to find work. I was sitting on the couch and there was a pillow on the floor beside me. I had 2 small kids and they were playing in a corner of the room about 15 feet away. I heard a random plunk and a penny had landed on the pillow beside me. My kids had not thrown it and I had no idea where it came from. I took it as a sign that things would work out. The next day I got a call about a job. Not quite the same, but your story triggered this memory. My girlfriend, now wife, lived in Europe but would come visit me in the US every month or 2. One day I came home from work and there was a €2 coin sitting on my pillow. She had left a couple weeks prior and I had slept there every night since, washing the sheets at least once in that time. Mine's probably more explainable than yours, but still. Very weird. My daughter and I were standing outside of a shop in a strip mall in a very suburban area. A smartly dressed man in a nice suit was approaching us and, as he did, a squirrel approached as well. Strange place for a squirrel to be. The man smiled at us, we smiled back, the squirrel scurried closer to the man fixed his gaze on the squirrel, and the squirrel scurried faster toward him as he started to panic and that damn squirrel ran up the man's leg and around his body and that grown man let out a shriek I'll never forget. My daughter and I just watched in horror as this poor man got assaulted by a crazy ass squirrel. The squirrel finally took off and all 3 of us just stared at each other like what the fuck just happened here. It was wild. I was kneeling down to get something off of the floor and somehow managed to break the big toe on my left foot. It has been more than 10 years and I still do not have any idea how. It's been 10 years so I doubt it, but did they check you for bone cancer or any other bone disease? They can cause brittle bones that break easily. Sitting on the couch with my at the time girlfriend, stairs to the 2nd floor covered by an adjacent wall. Suddenly we hear what sounds like someone stomping running down the stairs. Naturally I jumped up assuming someone had broken in, but there was nobody there. We checked every room upstairs, every closet, under every bed, nothing. We then went on to have a bunch of other weird and unexplained shit happen the 3 years we lived in that house. Thanks. I think I'll not be sleeping tonight. My dog has an intense ball obsession. It's a specific blue and orange checkered ball size S anyways. I've thrown it out of being annoyed very far, multiple houses. It always comes back. Our names are not on it, we don't have to. We've removed the squeak. It's absolutely the same ball, and it just reappears days after we tossed it. You may have benevolent crows. Do they like to eat your trash? If so, they may be bringing the ball back in exchange. Weird one, but when I was a teenager I almost died. I was on a cross-country team and was running through a forest and suddenly got a cramp which made me stop moving for a second. At that exact moment I stopped running. A tree landed exactly where I would have been. That cramp saved my life. Ye ol' guardian angel shank. When I was maybe 5 I was alone sitting on the steps of my cousin's trailer house. It was centered in the middle of these thick woods, humble TX, but there was a clearing for like a half-mile radius. A bobcat ran up to me, scratched me, harshly, but it was such a small cut. I cried, ran inside and told them what happened, and of course they didn't believe me and thought it was just a cat. This animal was huge. It still feels unexplainable how the cut was so small. Dated a woman much better than me for a while, asked her to marry me, she said yes. You can't explain that. This comment alone explains it. Survived being born. W sepsis and ERS said wouldn't make it. Hydroplaned across busy interstate during rush hour and wrecks happening all around me. Beat aggressive cancer, they said might not make it. Still here to type this.